Hi guys, it's Commodore Sam coming to you from LA, Lower Alabama. Today we've got our third installment in the Prog8 programming series. In the first installment we installed uh, the environment on our Windows PC. In the second installment we converted a program from the Commodore User's Guide into Prog8. And this third installment, I've written my first game using Prog8, and actually my first game ever. So it'll be an interesting walk through the code today to show the game and kind of what it looks like to program one in Prog8 by this very baby Prog8 programmer. And I say that because it's been a long time since I've really written anything. Did not know the Prog8 language before just a few weeks ago. And so really got back into programming and got into Prog8 programming in general. And I've made it quite a ways in 1 month, basically, from looking at the first Hello World app to today. This program is a Minesweeper like game, Microsoft Minesweeper. I call it 6502 Fart Bombs. That's just a funny nod to that 13-year-old kid that I was when I got my Commodore and started reading through the manual, and of course getting Commodore magazines and playing games. And I, of course, then wanted to write a game. Was not skilled enough to do it. By the time I was skilled enough to do it, I was in the Windows world. And so here I am back into Commodore programming, really, rather than just hardware and using it. So anyway, follow along. Hope you enjoy it. Please be kind in the comments. I don't know that I did a great job explaining it because, again, I'm a 1 month old programmer, and so trying to explain all the code is quite challenging. So, but I hope you will learn something from it and see how a person that has only been programming 1 month in Prog8 can actually produce something. Join me. Let's get started. 6502 Fart Bombs is my copy, if you will, of the game Minesweeper by Microsoft. And so this is the first screen that comes up when you run the application, and it just tells you what the object of the game is, and that's to flag every fart bomb on the screen without uncovering one and blowing yourself up. And the first thing I did was work on the gameplay and the movement and what it looked like, and so I made the decision to do navigation, at least in this first version, just using the keyboard. And so you're going to use the WASD key, the WASD keys for navigation. You can also use the arrow keys; either one works. I find myself most often using the arrow keys just because that's kind of what I always did since I was a kid. WASD wasn't really a thing. So anyway, you press space to uncover a tile, and then you, if there's a number under that tile, then that tells you how many fart bombs are around it. And so with those numbers, you can start figuring out where the fart bombs are, and you can hit F to place a flag over that without uncovering that tile. So these are the instructions, when so you flag all of the fart bombs, and once they're flagged, then, and you don't run over if you don't uncover an actual bomb, then that's how you win once you've flagged them all. So I'm going to hit space, and we'll go to the actual screen, the next screen. So basically, this is your field of play right here, these tiles. And so if you've never played Minesweeper, you uncover the tiles, hopefully not hitting a bomb on your first few tries until you can get some information to allow you to go on to the next where you think the next place you can go. I guess the best way to do it is just to show you. So in this particular one, there's 46 bombs that are hidden under these tiles. And so you can move around again using the keyboard, and so you see the cursor there. I'm going to hit space bar right now in this tile, and you can see that it goes ahead and expands to all the tiles around it if it finds a space. So if I keep on doing that, I eventually come to some numbers, right? Those numbers tell me that this number, this one tells me that somewhere around that one is a bomb. Well, obviously, these right here are already uncovered. These two are the only two that are adjacent to the number one. So one of these two has to be a bomb. And so now we don't know at this point which one it is, so we'll have to wait and come back to that to learn which one it is. So the next thing that I really can do is, I know since this is a space, this can't be a bomb, so now I can keep on exploring the empty space and maybe come around and figure out where a bomb is, and then once I'm doing that, I can then uncover the rest of the tiles. So I'm gonna hit space there, and I'm really just gonna kind of just expand all the spaces. So anytime I have a space, then I know it can't be a bomb right next to a space, right? So I can go ahead and clear it. Now, so this is a good example. This right here has ones all the way around it, and there's a couple of cues, right? Anytime there's a one in a corner, then this has got to be a bomb. So you got, this one's very clearly a bomb because you got plenty of ones that are not that would say this is a bomb. So I'm going to flag this as a bomb. So whenever I hit F, that puts that red explanation point over it, exclamation point, if I can say it right. And so what I've done is I've marked that as a bomb. Now you'll see at the top that the found just increased by one and the left decreased by one. So I have found one of my bombs, theoretically, right? So I'm going to keep doing this same process all the way through until I've flagged every single bomb. And then once I've flagged every single bomb, then it's going to have 0 left. Once I hit 0 left, it's going to check all of the bomb flags and against the actual bombs, and if they all match, then I have won the game. Now, if I accidentally hit a bomb, I'm just gonna randomly hit space and down arrow until I hit a bomb, like I did just then. If I hit a bomb, then I lose. And it goes ahead and shows me where all the bombs were. And so then I have the opportunity to play again. And so that's kind of the way the game works, right? I keep on trying to figure out where my bombs are based on the number tiles and spaces, and I try not to uncover one of them because that's how I lose. Guys, did I explain how to play Minesweeper for those rare few people out there that have never played Minesweeper?
I think it makes sense.
All right. So let's dig into the code on what makes this work. So that we'll get into the Prog8 code and look at how our game works. Again, disclaimer. This is a 3-week-old baby programmer that just learned how to program in Prog8 that wrote this. And so what I did, though, obviously I have some history in the past of programming, so I have basic programming knowledge. But most of what you see here, I learned from looking at the examples that are included in the Prog8 documentation and GitHub. And so that's how I got to most of this. A few things, were questions I asked to Andrew or someone else, but most of this is me looking at the examples and figuring out how to write a program based on the examples that I've seen. and reading the user guide. And so at the very top here, I've got some comments just saying, what game this is. The first section that you have here is the imports. So these are all the libraries that are imported that support a lot of these functions that we're going to be using. And so that these are all the imports, text file does text IO and strings does strings. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. SysLive has just some basic system libraries, and then math and conversion, is doing some of the math type stuff that we're using. Pretty straightforward. So every Prog8, just like we talked about in previous videos, has a main routine, and then it has a start subroutine in that main. What I've in this particular game, in the way of doing it, basically I'm running a do loop until my status equals 0. So that way, you notice when I lost the game, it asked me, did I want to play again? As long as I keep saying yes, I'm going to come right back here into this loop, and it's going to start at the top and fall through and run this program over and over and over again, this code over and over again, until I say, no, I don't want to play again. And then it's going to fall out of this, and the program's going to end right here. So everything else is, besides this main section here, is down here in this namespace called game. And the game namespace holds all of the subroutines and code to actually run the game. So when you're looking at this main section here, the first thing I'm doing, of course, is setting my variable that's going to drop me out if I say no. But then the next thing I do is I go game, and then I've set in the board size. And right now I've hard coded this board size in for a Commodore 64. There'll be some future episodes where we make this a little more cross-platform. But right now, this is my board size that I've hard coded in there. So this game set board size, if we go down to the set board size subroutine inside the game namespace, you can see that really all it's doing is setting some variables. So nothing but some variable setting there, and so then it comes back and returns, and then we're going into the draw splash screen. Now the splash screen is of course that title and the first title that you see, along with the instructions and all of that. And so the way that section is working is basically bringing me, first thing it does is it sets an exit title key so that it'll keep displaying while the person's reading. So the person's reading the text that I have put on the screen, and so it prints all this text on the screen, and then it comes down here into this do loop, waiting for me to hit space to exit out of the instruction screen, right? So and there's a lot of different ways I could do this. Is just the way that I chose to do it. I could do these print screens all different ways. These print lines all different ways. But basically, I went ahead and set my border color. I went ahead and set my background color, and then I made my foreground color these items here. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit and just show you that here at the very beginning of this game section, I set up all of my variables that I'm using. Most of my variables that I'm using down in the lower subroutines, and I could have cleaned this up, and I plan to clean this up a little bit and make it a little neater. So this is some raw code here. I could have put all these on one line instead of the way that I did it. But I've also got my constants
where I'm keeping all of my characters that I'm putting on the screen and in constants, all my colors in constants, all those things I've made constant so that I can really easily go in here and change this and change the look of the game and the values of the actual text that I'm putting on the screen. So that's the first part that happens in the game namespace. So when I'm down here in my draw splash, when I say make the border, I'm using this constant for the border color, and then I'm using this constant for the background color, and so I've got all these constants in here. So anyway, this next line, this txt dot, we're going to see that a lot throughout this. That is calling on the include that we had at the top, the import of the text IO. That's calling routines that are in that text IO. So the very first one here is setting my text color, and I'm setting it to my foreground color. Then the next is doing a .cls, so that's clearing the screen. You really can clear the screen in two different ways, really. You can either print with the clear screen character, or you can just call the text.cls. This line here is a plot. So basically, this places the cursor wherever I want it on the screen, based on column row order here under plot. So I'm going to place the cursor at the 8th column, 3rd row, and then I'm going to turn my reverse on. So this is turning on the reverse color, and then I paint this 6502 fart bombs, and I paint the object. I print all the objects in different colors. This is the gameplay character. Characters and instructions, all of that stuff. I'm just drawing that on the screen, and that's what all of these print routines and plot routines and turning reverse on and reverse off. If you remember, I'll just run it real quick. This screen right here is what we're looking at right now. This is all just reverse characters. Some of these are reversed, right? Just calling out, of course, I'm calling the colors and all of that. So that's what the splash screen is doing. And so I write all that to the screen, and I say press space bar to continue. And then I just sit here in this loop, waiting for someone to hit space, and then I exit out of the splash screen. So once I exit out of the splash screen, and let me give everybody whiplash scrolling around. Once I exit out of the splash screen, then I jump to the title screen, and that's pretty simple. Again, I broke all this stuff up so that if I wanted to edit it, I could very, very well edit it. So the next thing I go is into the draw title, and all that's doing is putting the title at the very top of the screen. So that next screen. So this is when we get to express here. So I just drew this this right here. I'm going to just move this down because I'll keep pulling it up. And so so that's what this draw title is doing. And then the next thing, and I'm not going to go back up to the main section. The very next thing that happens in the main section is it drops down into the scoreboard. And so the scoreboard is just this right here. So I'm drawing that there. Again, I put these in separate ones because I may make them fancier at some point, and yada, yada, yada. And so then the next thing that I come down is I actually draw the playboard. So this section here, I go ahead and draw that on the screen. And so I'm going to, set my text color properly. I start at the top of the top left of the board. Remember, using my constants here that were set in the that first initial subroutine that I ran. And then I start placing things on the screen. Now, in some cases in this, when I'm printing sentences or something like that, I'm usually using the print routine. when I'm placing these individual characters, for whatever, I just decided to use the character out functions. And so whenever each one of these characters, these line characters around the board, each one of these tiles is a text character that I'm placing on the screen through going through this loop where I'm printing the outline border, and then I'm filling in that and painting that board one line at a time. As far as the code, basically, like I said, I set the colors. I go ahead and print the upper line part, so that just was just a convenience. So I jump down and I print the upper line here, and so that just goes through a loop and prints that. Okay. Same thing when I go and I go to the next section and I do the upper right, and I plot, and then I go through a loop and I do the middle part. So basically this does each one of those middle lines here in the middle. So because every one of these lines is exactly the same when the game starts, I'm just running through a loop generating these lines in a short amount of code. And so that's what all of this is doing. And so between this section here that's drawing it, I'm just using these little helper things, the upper line, the lower line, the middle part. I'm just calling those over and over again to draw my board, right? And so then the next thing that happens, and you may not have noticed it, but right after I hit space, it displays for a moment, gas pressure is rising. That is when it is actually setting up the bombs. So at this point, I am going through and I display this, and then while the gas pressure is rising, I go through and I run my bomb random code, and that goes through all of this, basically this tile pattern here. Behind the scene, I've got an array where it basically goes from character to character and randomly decides whether that is a bomb or not a bomb, right? So that's the first pass that I go through the game board behind the scenes, the behind game board, right? So I go through this bomb random first. And so basically that's running this subroutine here. And this is my random, this generates all the bombs. So the first thing I do is I say, okay, well, my total bombs is at 0 right now, right? And then I set set up these variables for the column and row index to keep track of where I am as I'm creating these bombs or deciding whether there's a bomb there or not. And then I go through this for loop to basically iterate through all of the individual tiles in the background in that array and determine whether those individuals are bombs or not. So what I've done here, you'll notice this is the random function. This random function here, as I'm telling it to pull a random number in the range of 0 to 10. And if it happens in that range to wind up being a 4, then I'm going to make that a bomb. So if you can imagine, I'm doing it basically 1 out of 10 times, I'm creating a bomb. So like 10% is the idea. And so if I want to later on add some difficulty levels or something like that, then I can just adjust how often, how big the range is. And so that changes the chances of it being a bomb. When it is equal to 4, it is a bomb. So therefore, I set the value of that particular value to the bomb. Now, this set value is a subroutine I wrote basically to insert that value into the array, right? And then the next thing I'm doing is I'm totaling up the bombs as I go. So that I can then draw the score where I show how many bombs I have left. I've got to count the bombs that I create. Anytime it's not equal to 4, it's setting that tile initially to space. So I basically am iterating through with these for loops all of the tiles that are behind the array that's behind all these tiles. I'm iterating through them. I got a 1 in 10 chance of it being a bomb, and if it's not a bomb, it's a space. So that's kind of the first pass. Is it a bomb or is it a space, right? The second, then I go through in a second pass after I've randomly placed all the bombs. I do a second pass to set up all the number tiles. So I go through and iterate through that same loop again to determine where the bombs are, and then I set the tiles. I take each tile and I count the bombs that are around it and assign it a number. But not only do I assign it a number, later on I'm going to assign it a color as well, right? Because I want those items to show up with a certain color, right? So we're going to get to that. So to recoup, I'm randomly choosing bomb or space. Then I'm making a second pass through all my tiles and I'm assigning the numbers. Okay, so that basically I'm just going to get to some numbers. So this right here, it went through line by line by line. And when it got right here, it said somewhere in these tiles around here, there's a bomb. There's 1, so it counted that 1, and it assigned it a 1. Okay. So at this point, I have set up my whole board. I have assigned all my variables. And so then the next thing I'm doing, if you just imagine me painting down the screen here, and I could have done that in a different order. I didn't. But the next thing I do is I draw the menu. And the menu basically is this down here. In other words, what is my options of things that I can press? And so that's pretty straightforward. Again, it's just a bunch of plots and RBSs and text on the screen. So I won't go through all of that. So at this point, my board like this is completely set up just like I want. And so now it's time to play the game. So I'm going to do new. Yes. Okay. And so I've basically gone through here, and this screen is now painted just like this, right? So the next thing, if I go all the way back, right, just as a refresher, I'm setting the board size. I did the splash screen. I did the title screen. I did the scoreboard. I did the play board. I set the bombs. I set the num tiles. I drew my menu. So all those lines are just setting up the game. And then I say status equals game.play. So now I'm calling the play functions, right? So I'm going to start playing the game. And so what that play function is all the way down here. And it's basically just a big loop, right? The play function's a big loop waiting for me to press different keys to clear tiles or flag tiles or hit new because I'm tired of that game, or hit L because I'm going to quit altogether, to leave the game. So basically this play gets called, and the first thing it does is set up that idea of the again answer. Am I going to play again when I'm done? Because again, this stays in this loop as long as I'm pressing all these characters, right? And it's going to stay in this loop until one of these, until one of these is pressed, right? It's going to repeat. So whenever some keys stay in, some things that I press stay in, some actions, whether I hit a bomb or not, I stay in this loop, right? Some actions cause me to come out of the loop. If I uncover a bomb, if I hit new, if I hit L to leave, if I do any of those things, then it's going to exit me out of the gameplay and ask me a question, right? And so that's when you see these it returning certain values, and so I'm returning out of back to the game play, the main subroutine, whenever I'm doing one of these returns. All right. So and I hope I'm being understood. It's kind of hard to zoom through this. Maybe so. You can leave it in the comments if you think I really messed this up. Maybe I'll get better at explaining my code.
I got it.
All right. So we're in this play, right? And the very first thing I'm doing is I'm setting up my variable for again answer. In other words, if I make it to a point to where it asks me, do I want to play again? This is the answer that says that. I start my cursor, the game cursor starts in the upper left-hand corner of the game. I can move it from there, but it starts there. So whenever I run the game, you'll notice the cursor sitting up here in the blue upper left-hand corner. And then from there, the game starts based on me pressing characters. If those characters are the WSD, or if those characters are the arrow keys, then it's moving around. So if I look at my code here, first thing I'm doing is turning on the repeat. So this is basically a poke command in Prog8, where I'm poking into this memory address the value of 128, and that sets the repeat key on for, if I hold down the W key, or if I hold down the, A key or whatever, so if I hold it down, it's going to move automatically across the screen. So that's the first thing that happens. Then the second thing is I call a subroutine that's called cursor on. What the cursor on does is, as I'm moving these around, these characters, the way that I indicate where my cursor is I say, when I move to there, this tile, I say I want to move there, and so I need to paint the screen so that the user, the game player, knows where I move to. So I repaint that tile in the blue color. And so that is my cursor on function that I'm calling here. So I say, if I hit the, so what I'm doing is I'm starting in the very upper left-hand corner, because remember I set this column current and row current to 1 up here. So I said, turn the cursor on at position 1, 1. So that started the cursor at, in this position right here. The next thing that I'm doing is I'm going into my repeat function, waiting for key presses at that point. So here's all the key presses that I have in this repeat function. Right? So anytime you see a return 0, remember I'm bombing out. If I have a return of another number, then I'm not really bombing out. I'm playing again, right? So that's calling back to the master. So before I do anything else, I could leave this game. So I could hit L. So L equals leave. And it would say, do you want to leave the game? And I would say yes, and I would leave the game, right? If I say no, then nothing happens. I'm right back where I started. All right, that's this L right here. So if I hit L, so this right here is the key press where I am checking to see if there's a key pressed, right? And so this is looping over and over again, looking for a key press, just waiting, scanning the keyboard, waiting for me to press a key, right? And so when a key is pressed and it equals one of these values, then it executes this code within this deal. This is when in Prog8 is like in some other languages a case statement. And so that's its form of a case statement. So when key equals L, then do this block of code. When key equals N, then do this block of code. And so that's kind of how this works. So L, like I did a while ago, jumps to again answer equals play again. So it goes over to my play routine and play again routine. And my play again routine I'm passing the value to it of a Q, because I've got several different reasons why I might ask to play again. I could play again because I hit Q to, because I'm leaving, or I can play again because I said I want a new game, or I can later on, if I lose or I win, I can play again as well. So I'm passing it a status of why I'm going to the play again, and I'll show you why that is. That should be under here. I'll go all the way to the bottom. I think that's the last one.
Sam, I had a question for you when you have a
Sure.
second.
Yeah, let me do this play again, and then I'll let you do that. So if I go into this play again, then I'm passing the value to it, and you can see right here why did I get here? I'm giving different messages for the play again based on why it's being asked to play again. Could have done this 1,000 different ways, but that's why I did it. All right, yes, Brett.
I like how you did the repeat when you're accepting the input from the keyboard.
Yes.
So what I've done in some programs I've written is I just had a label and a go to. I didn't even think about using repeat. My question for you is that poke into 650 with the value 128.
Right.
Can you explain how
I
that?
absolutely cannot explain it.
Well,
No.
what does it do? What does it do that helps you with accomplishing your input here?
Okay, so normally if I was wanting to move around here, I'd have to hit W, or let me hit S for down, right? I'd have to hit S each time, right? That poke allows me to hold the S down and it just move, or hold the W down and it just move. So it's repeating the key as opposed to me having to press it each time.
Yeah, I can interject.
I haven't had to do that, I think, because you're treating that as a function call. I guess I wonder. I probably
the
don't.
Arrow keys, by the way, the arrow keys don't do that. So if you're using the arrow keys, that repeats automatically, I think. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Commodore kernel thing. So that particular variable is what keys are repeated. And then I believe 128 is turning them all on, and it defaults to like arrows and a couple other keys. So that's a thing where in Prog8 we probably need to kind of standardize, make a little function called like set key repeat or something, because it's obviously it's basically a poke. It's a magic number. It doesn't really explain what it's doing too well. But if you look in mapping the C64 for that memory address, there's a better explanation of what's going on there. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, you'll notice that I reminded myself why I did it. I put a comment in there. It's a magic repeat code. Put that in there.
That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm sitting there and I'm looping through this, right? And so I covered the L, right? So if I wanted to leave the game, because that's what the L means, and I didn't, and which is funny because I pass a Q because I can't pass an L because that's losing the game. So anyway, so Q is quitting. So I won't even. I didn't want to use Q here, so that might seem kind of funny. Why didn't you just put Q right here instead of L for leave? Basically, I was trying to keep all of the keys that would exit you out of the game away from the WASD, right? I wanted to put them on the other side of the keyboard so you wouldn't accidentally press the key while you were navigating around the game. So that's the reason for the L. So anyway, so L leaves the game, and basically when it leaves, it just passes it to play again with the Q, which then tells play again to display a certain message saying, do you really want to leave? And then based on that answer, that answer gets returned back. And if that answer is yes, then it's you wanted to leave. So it sends it back, it returns 0, which then kicks you out of the game because it sends it back to the main subroutine without with a return value of 0, which then bombs it out of its repeat. Otherwise, if you say no, or if you say no, I don't want to leave, right? Then it draws the menu and plays again. So the draw menu is just like throwing it back to the, drawing the menu. In other words, you just keep playing, right? New kind of works the same way, but then it has a different answer. A new game is kind of I'm planning on playing another game, right? Not the leave. If I don't leave, I stay in the game I'm in. If I do a new, then I either start a new game or I stay in the one that I'm in. So those are similar but different. Now, this is where I get into the moving around, right? So these are a little bit different. So this is the WASD, WASD, and kind of the wrong, not in WASD order. So probably been better to put the WASD up here if I was writing readable code. But whenever you press one of those keys, those navigation keys, it's basically A or left, right? That's the left arrow, or it's D and it's the right arrow, or it's S and it's the down arrow, right? Or W and the up arrow. So that's what those values. Those are the PETSCII values of those key presses being captured. And so that's what those are. So in each one of these moves, it's a pretty simple process, right? It does do a check to make sure that if I'm at the border or not, right? So you'll notice each one of these, depending on which direction that I'm going, I'm doing a check to see if I'm already at the border. I can't move further than the border. Same thing on every direction, but it's a different border that I might be at if I'm telling it to go that direction, right? So as long as I'm not at the border, then I want to turn the cursor off on the character I'm at. I want to move to the next character and then I want to turn my cursor on. So that is the process of again, if I hit up arrow, I turn this one off and turn the next one on. So that is the way that I'm indicating to the user where the cursor is I'm just drawing I'm just drawing the blue color on the, turning it off here and turning it on here. If I go up again, turned it off here and turned it on here. So that's the only thing those navigations are doing. Now, something that's a little more complicated when we get into this deal, and of course I'd hit a bomb on the first one. Yes. All right. And so I'm going to hit that. All right. Now, I'm in a space or I'm down here. So here's the interesting thing. The reason I'm doing the cursor on, the cursor off is one, for readability, but also I've got to do something different if I'm coming over a space or I'm coming over a 1 or if I'm coming over an actual tile. I've got to do something different based on those things, because here I turned the 1 blue, here I turned the space blue, but here I did, I'm changing. Here I didn't turn it blue, exactly blue. I reversed it, and this one's not. So you're making something different every time. So whenever you go to this cursor off and cursor on. Same thing when I leave it, I've got to leave it the way that it was. So what state was it in when I got there? And I need to paint it the same color, because one of the things that if you've done Minesweeper, as I'm going around, depending on how many numbers, the numbers are different colors. So if I move over that 2 and I make it blue and then I move off of it, then I got to paint it back to green, right? So I need to know what my color was. And so in this particular game, that was really easy because I didn't have to keep track of state. I just know that 2s are always green. So what I did was, when, in this cursor off function, I'm moving my cursor off of it, which is down here. Where are you? Cursor off. Okay, here we go. Cursor off. So whenever I remove the cursor off of a tile, then I'm checking to see what the value of it was, and I repaint it to its original color. And so again, you'll notice all throughout here, this game is like all repeats and case statements almost. You know, it's just like almost everything is that. It's just repeating the same stuff over and over and over again. So it's not very complex from that standpoint, but you certainly lose track of where everything is if you're not commenting properly. So every one of these works the same, right? Cursor on's pretty easy. I'm always painting it blue. Cursor off, I've got to paint it the color that it was supposed to be, right? So next, okay, if this is kind of a cheat, I didn't put it on the menu, but during testing, I still have this in there. This will probably come out, but if you actually type an asterisk, it will just go ahead and show you all the bombs. And at that point, you got to quit the game because you can't get back in. The bombs are going to stay lit. So that's really just a cheat code right now, and will be removed. But more importantly, the flag, right? Whenever I do a flag, then I am marking that with an exclamation point. So if I decided this one right here was a bomb and I hit the F, then it marks it as a flag. Right now it's blue because my cursor is still on the flag, right? When I move off of the flag and that cursor off gets called, then I'm painting it reversed red, right? So I'm always every time I'm leaving, I'm painting it appropriately. So when I hit F, this the first thing that I'm doing is I'm setting my value for complete flag equals what it is, right? And then if complete equals yes, so I'm checking to see if I'm complete, then go to the again answer, right? So here I'm basically marking the flag, right? So I go flag this position, right? So if I come down here to my flag subroutine, you'll see that it's a little more complex than some of the others because I'm saying flag, and this is something I didn't point out earlier. I'm passing values. So let me talk about this real quick because I hadn't covered this yet, but I think maybe we did in the previous video. I don't remember. But whenever you're setting up a subroutine, basically you can pass values into the subroutine, right? So right now the flag accepts 2 bytes, the column and the row, right? And when all this code is done, it's going to return a U byte back to the calling program or process, right? So here I'm calling this flag, and then based on the return value, I'm doing something with it. So we'll go back down here. So if it returns yes, then that's saying it's complete, right? So let me get down here and look at this again. All right, so here's my routine. The first thing I'm doing is I'm saying I'm assuming it's not complete because I'm making it. I just flagged an item, so it couldn't have been complete before. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to flag. All right. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm saying complete equals no. So I set my variable, right? Then the next thing I do is I get the character at the position that I passed in. Now this position is a little bit of a weird, again, I could have done this very differently. I chose not to do it exactly, but so the board top X and the board top Y is actually this character right here. So it's the corner, right? And so it's not an actual tile. So basically, whenever you call this and you pass in the column and the row, I'm actually adding that to the value of this column and row. And the reason I'm doing that is because instead of setting up a array and repainting the screen every time, for my cupboard board, I'm actually using the screen character array, the actual screen locations, memory locations, and determining what value is, the values that are actually showing. That way I'm not wasting a bunch of space trying to keep track of something that's already being kept track of by the computer. So all of these screen, if you know anything about programming in Commodore 64, every character on the screen is just really a memory location with a value in it. And Commodore just always displays whatever is in those memory locations on the screen. That's just the way that it works. And so I'm always to be able to save space and not take up any more memory than necessary, I'm using the position it is on the screen and doing offsets to determine what the value is. So anyway, I'm testing the character to see what is there. All right. If the character that is there that I passed in and said I want a flag, if the character is equal to actually being a flag, because that's the constant value for my flag, if it's already a flag, either regular or reversed, and I just did that for my own sanity because I couldn't remember which one it was at different times. So I just checked for both. If it's a flag, it's a flag. I don't care if it's reversed or not reversed. In this particular case, I am keeping track of it. So in the screen, basically a board tile flag is the exclamation point, right? Board tile flag raised to 128 is a reversed exclamation point. So it's checking for either one. If those are true, then it's going to move it's going to plot, it's going to say at this position, right? I'm plotting this position, moving the cursor there. I am setting the color to the board tile flag color, and I'm turning reverse on, and I'm doing that. Now, this is actually technically a little bit of a bug because it's never going to be this color because my cursor's still over it, and so it's never going to be red at this point. So this is actually not even necessary. So I could take those colors and stuff out here because it's not necessary, because it's going to be blue because my cursor's still over it until I move off of it. So what's going to actually paint it red is not this. What's going to actually paint it red is when I cursor off, when I call my cursor off routine. That's going to paint it red. This is not actually painting it red. But anyway, so whenever I flag something, I flag a tile and say that there's a bomb up under that, then of course I need to adjust my bombs left and bombs found. Now, it's a little misnomer when I say it's found, because I think it's found until it finally checks it to see if it's truly found, right? Because that's the winning the game. So if it is a flag, then I am adjusting it, right? If else, I'm going to say else if the bomb left is equal to 0, or the character is already or if it's 0, or the tile is not a covered tile, right? Because I can only flag covered, right? There'd be no reason for me to flag that character right there, because I already know what that character is, and it's not a bomb. If that had been a bomb, I would have lost the game. So there's no reason to allow me to flag. So if I move my cursor right here and I hit F, that's not going to create a flag. The reason that won't create a flag is because I'm checking to see that it's a covered tile. So it's got to be one of these characters that's covered for me to be able to flag it. So I'm checking to make sure, because I don't want to stick a flag out in the middle of nowhere, right? So that's what this part right here is checking. Okay. Also, if I've flagged all the bombs and I'm down to 0 left, okay, and the game is not complete, then I don't want to allow a flag, right? So I can't flag if I'm at 0. If I'm at this point, however, I'm getting to 0 because I got to 0 because I am complete, I guess you would say. I just hit 0 for the first time, right? Right here would be a 0 for the first time, so I need to do something about that, and so I return, it looks like we're complete, right? So I'm going to return complete, and whatever that value is, right? And then I'm gonna plot the next line if this is not, obviously if this only happens if those things are true, right? I'm just bombing out because it's 0. Here I am, if it's not 0 and it's not the tile, or it is the tile, it is a deal, I'm going to actually put a flag in, right? And I'm going to say bombs. I'm going to subtract from my bombs left, and I'm going to add to my bombs found, right? And then I'm going to draw this scoreboard again, because I want to redisplay this, because all I did was set the variables up here. All right, so I'm going to redisplay. I'm going to redraw my scoreboard right here. And then the next thing I'm going to do is hit cursor on, because I need, I'm making it blue. Remember I told you this was going to wind up blue? It's going to wind up blue because I'm cursoring on right here. And so that color that I did before doesn't even matter, because it's going to happen so fast. Nobody's ever going to see anything but blue. And then finally down here, this is where, if I made it this far, and hopefully I didn't make this as more confusing. I feel like I've taught myself around in circles. This right here is the final check to see, did I find all the bombs? Okay, so I've made it down through the flag process. So I've marked my flags, and I've gotten to 0 at this point. That means I just got to 0 for the first time. And so then it's going to check my bombs. And so that calls this routine right here. And all that does is it iterates through all of the tiles, and it checks the bombs against the flags. And if all the bombs and flags match, then it returns yes. And that basically wins the game, right? So it passed, but it's passing it back. The reason it's doing that is because, remember, I'm still in this loop. And so now I'm in that repeat function. So I got to pass it back saying I did complete it. And then that function sees that it's complete. So then it jumps out of the play repeat. And it kind of jumps out of it. It jumps out of it, goes to the play again. And depending on how I answered the play again, yes or no, then it would jump out, either go play again, or it's going to jump completely out. I feel like I could have done a lot better of explaining of that particular section. And so basically, that's the flag function. A lot happens in the flag, right? A lot happens in the flag, because that's when you really are doing the last key you pressed to determine whether you won the game or not, right? So then that comes back to the play, right? And so that was this flag routine. And that's where I come in here and say, based on that flag, did I complete it? Yes. If I completed it, then I ask, do I want to play again with the win? Because it's going to say you won. And then it's going to say, do you want to play again? Right. And then if they answer yes to play again, then it's returning 1. jumping back up to the main subroutine, and it goes through that loop again, right? So now that brings us to the next most complicated function, and that is just uncovering a tile. You uncover a tile by hitting the space bar while you're over a tile. And when you do that, it's checking to see if in the, it does a cursor on, first of all. And then it does, well, the first thing it does is set your under, right? What is the under? And it calls the uncover at this particular place, right? That's the first thing it does. So what that does is it again passed in where it was, the location, and it returns a byte and a U byte. So basically, it's going to get the character, it's going to look at it, all of it, and then if it is a whatever the character is, it's going to return what character it was back to here, which then it's going to do something based on what the character was. But one thing that's real important here when I uncover is that idea. So in the original game, where whenever you uncovered a space in the original game, it would uncover all the adjacent spaces and until it got to the border of the around all the blank spaces and would show the numbers. So whereas mine, whenever I come over here and I hit space here, it only does the 8 tiles around it. And of course, there's none up here, but it only does the 8 tiles around it because it knows there's no bomb adjacent to it because it's blank. And so basically, at most I'm clearing 9 tiles at a time, right? At most. A lot of times I'm not even clearing 9, but that's what so the uncover does this logic of trying to find. It'll either uncover 1 tile if it's got a value under it besides space, or it'll uncover 9 tiles because there's a space, and it'll uncover all the tiles around it. And so that's basically what this uncover is doing. When you first hit it, it's checking to see if the tile is covered or reverse covered, if you will. So it's just checking that character. And then it's plotting it and drawing it based on what is in the array. It's drawing that on the screen by doing the character out. And then based on then it returns the value that it found back, right? So it returns that value. That jumps back up to here. And then it says, okay, if that value was a space, because, then I'm going to go ahead and clear all of those around it, right? And so but there's one other thing that you could have uncovered, and that was a bomb. If it uncovered a bomb, it's saying right here, if it's 42 or the reverse of 42, in other words, you hit a bomb, dummy, then it sends to the play again routine with an L for lose, and it says, you lose, do you want to play again? So that's kind of, that right there is an important part of the game. So this one kind of captures whether you lost, right? So your code in here is whether you lost or not, and the clearing of the tiles. The flag determines whether you won because you're flagging it, and if you flagged all the things properly, then you would win. So you can win in here and you can lose in here. Is basically what I'm saying. All right, so that is the main looping that we do here. Here when I told you that it calls the uncover around, that's pretty straightforward. It just again does a cursor off function. It does an uncover and a cursor off function for each one of the tiles that are around it. So this uncovers it, and this right here paints it properly. So that's my cheating way of painting it the right color for each one of the numbers here. We already covered flag. Let me see, is there any of these subroutines I missed? The only thing that left that I would mention is at the very bottom, I'm running version 11 point whatever 4, I think. And they had, so version 12 that's coming out very soon supports this reverse on, reverse off. 11.4 did not, or 11 whatever that I'm on did not. And so this right here is an option to expand the TXT and merge it in. So that I won't go into the complexities of that, but that's what that is doing down there. If you happen to eventually look at this code. Trying to think. So anyway, so back to the play. Notice I said before, I'll finish up by saying if any of these is returning a value, right, anywhere in here, any of these returns, that's actually dumping you out of this repeat function and sending you back to the main, right? And so it sends you back to here. And so the main is always looping until the status equals 0. So that return right here, status equals game.play, that return, those returns that are in those key functions are returning a value back to status here. And if it ever hits 0, then it's ending the game and bombs you out to the ready prompt. No pun intended. But any other value, any other state, it's just going to repeat this function and start up here and go down again. And that's just going to keep doing that until it finally returns a 0 and then bombs it out. So guys, that, this is, again, my first game and first time actually trying to explain that much code at one time too. So hopefully I'll get better at both programming and explaining my code. You can kind of get lost in it a little bit in different sections. And I think I even got lost a couple times as I was going through there. But I'm pretty proud of it. We've got more things that we're going to do right now. It is there's going to be a couple more videos probably, but right now this runs on a 64 only. Prog8 is capable of programming to other systems. So the intention is to make this run on a VIC-20, make this run on a +4 or a pad or whatever. Obviously, those machines are not 100% compatible with one another. Pets don't have color, and VIC-20s don't have SIDs. Got a sound chip, but not the same, not the SID that we always talk about. Obviously the VIC-20 has smaller screen size, so we got to have all of those things flexible so that we can make it cross-platform. So those will be coming up. Right now, this is just a straight through semi-sloppy code, of a very green baby programmer, being me, especially in Prog8, because I'm learning, hopefully like you are.
The one thing I was going to mention is you'd asked about two-dimensional arrays, and that's where that maybe you want to talk about the set value and get value a little bit, just how you're using an array of arrays kind of thing, just because Prog8 doesn't currently support two-dimensional arrays.
Right. So yeah, so it's a good point. I guess maybe I can do that justice. But if you've ever worked with a language, with some other languages, you'll know, and I'll just come down here and just type it, that you might reference an array like array, and it's a two-dimensional array. You might have a bracket, and you might say, I want the third one, and and the fourth So maybe those are row columns if you're thinking of it that way, or whatever. But you might have a call that said maybe it was sales. Like if you think of Excel, maybe it's Excels and it's the third column in the fourth row, or the third row in the fourth column, or whatever. Maybe you had a grid of values and you wanted to reference it with a two-dimensional array. A lot of other programming languages have that defined that way. What we did, and this was thank you to Andrew. I told you I got some information from talking with a lot of this information came from looking at examples, but some of it was me and Andrew discussing various strategies on how to handle some things. And so one of the things, if you think about, okay, there's basically two grids that I'm keeping track of, right? So did I close the game? Yeah, where is it behind there? Where'd I go? Where'd it go? I'll just start it over. That's easier. When you're looking at the game here, you've got, of course, the board that's showing up on the front, but then you have in the background the same kind of row column kind of idea of what's behind it. In other words, is it a space? Is it a bomb? Is it a number tile? That array is sitting behind it, and it kind of would naturally fall into a column row kind of array. So to mimic that, instead of a multi-dimensional array, we basically did it with a function call so that we could make it as simple as calling row column wherever we were.
Yes, it's an array of arrays, or pointers to arrays, effectively. And so you're indexing the bomb array, which is getting you the pointer to the row array, and then which is what you have in temp, and then you're just using the column to look up the appropriate value from the row array.
Right. And he said it so much better than I could say it. I'm tongue-tied at this point. Now, same thing with the get. So the get value, basically, the difference here with set, all I'm doing is passing in the value, right? And so where am I putting it and what is its value, right? And I'm passing all three arguments into the array. To get the value out of the array, all I need is to give it the location of column and row, and then it returns what the value is in that array. But it's pretty much doing the same thing. It's using a temporary variable and then looking at it, looking at that pointer to the array.
Yeah, and so instead of having a two-dimensional where you essentially reference it in one shot, you're doing it in two steps because it's two single dimensional arrays.
So thank y'all for watching, and join us for some more iteration on this cross-platform. Sound, obviously, if you're going to call something fart bombs, you got to have a fart bomb. So sound is coming. So thanks, guys.